What's good with the YouTube? Y'all already know. Big Flacco with a convict's perspective, and I'm gonna smash, dash, slide on through with that little bit of energy. Please hit the like, subscribe, comment, and do all those things to help support this channel, and hit that bell notification for future fire content. So check it out. We're gonna do one. We're gonna update one that talks about the Fresno Nortenos. There's a storyline here about one that was killed by his own people out there in Fresno, or by other Nortenos. But first and foremost, before we go into that, we already know traditionally Fresno has a long tenure history with association with the NF. At one time, it was probably one of the strongest cars as far as in the prison system with NF members. You know, Crackers Vindiola, who's originally from down south but had close ties to Fresno. Sammy Venegas, Tony Coronado, Cuca, also all kinds of these dudes were all old school carnales from out that way, man. And old man Rafas, man, we keep on forgetting about him. Rafas, all these individuals were came out of fucking Fresno. Fresno was a hotbed, and as we already know, there was a transition. And traditionally, when you think of Fresno today, if you're a young Norteño out there in the streets, even the Sureño, you're gonna think Bulldogs. It's mainly a area that's ran by Bulldogs, but there is some Norteños out there that are in pockets that have certain little territories or barrios out there. West side of Fresno has always been known to have a lot of Norteños. As you're going to see in a couple people that I've heard of. You know, Pancho from Fresno did a lot of time. What's his name? Lokester. He was a hermano that was in Quinmas with us. Even one that taps in the comments, Bubba. He was a insoldado as well from Fresno. So even with Fresno having a bunch of Bulldogs, they've always been able to have some type of foundation of Norteños in Fresno and the surrounding areas. Now, they're not number-wise as deep as the Bulldogs, not even close. As we already know, that's a traditionally ran Bulldog town, straight up. There's Sureños out there as well. But the Norteños do have a presence. They're able to wiggle. And I've met some good individuals that came from Fresno. And there was a time period like in the 90s when all this stuff happened with the Bulldogs, right? Bulldogs were once Norteños before. Then the whole stuff that went from the prison went to YA and it just fucking caught like fire. For a minute, if you were a homeboy from Fresno, you were under investigation when you entered a household. There was always red flags that maybe you were a sleeper, a Bulldog that was trying to sneak out there, because there had been times in the past, in the 80s and 90s, individuals would be Bulldogs with only one intention. They would say they were homeboys from Fresno, right? And next thing you know, they would try to slide on through and try to put in some work. And you also had some individuals that when there was people from Fresno that were not there, they were rocking solid with other cars that were from like San Jose, Tulare County, and whatnot. But as soon as people from Fresno came and the Bulldog line was pushed, they switched up their alliances. This happened all the time. Now, to this day, there's still Norteños out there. There was a recent indictment. I think it focused mainly on Parlier. But if you think that the whole area of Fresno has no Norteños, you're going to be mistaken. They're not deep. They're not going to have overwhelming numbers. But you don't need a big group of Norteños to make a presence anywhere. And that's been proven time and time again. And look at what the upstate Sureños were able to do. They were able to wiggle where their numbers were low, and now they've been able to expand. Now, with that said, I have a story right here that I did that talks about a Norteño that was from Fresno that tried to get away. And the story is kind of sad, man, because in light of this individual trying to change his ways, there were those that harbored animosity, wanted to push that line against him, and he ultimately paid with his life. Now, here's a story. I did this about maybe a year ago. Then we also add in the feds, there's been a lot of individuals that are Bulldogs that are being afforded the opportunity to sit there and function amongst Norteños, and some of them have started to embrace the Norteño cosa, the Norteño lucha. They've been around certain individuals who've instilled that belief in fire. And I guess there's a lot of stuff that's coming to light that was a lot of individuals were what you called misled over testimonies of what really occurred with the split between the Norteños and the Bulldogs. Like I've always told people, there's so much misinformation being put out there that I think there's a little bit of truth that comes from all sides. In any event, the Norteños have been welcome to function in some households in the feds. I just want to say one thing about Fresno Norteños, Fresno Bulldogs, and Fresno Sureños. Based upon the type of environment it is out there, it's a hotbed, and it's basically every man for himself. It's like the Wild Wild West. Every one of these factions is with them activities. I'll tell you that right now. Just the Bulldogs are the more stronger one out of all of them. Also, man, let's not forget those small towns out there in the surrounding area of Fresno in Fresno County. Relief, Parlier, all of them, all with the functions, all with them activities. With that said, let's get to this video, man. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy this video. And it revolves around the Fresno County Nortenos, particularly East County in the Del Rey area. An interesting case happened there, and there's a message here, man. And this can go out to the young kid that's gang banging that's at a young age, to the old guy that wants to get out this lifestyle. This gang culture has evolved to a different direction, to where it's gravitating its members to have to stay in the mix and not be able to walk away on their terms to live their life. So listen to the story real quick. Okay, there was an individual named Michael Escalera. He was a Norteño, but he was turning a new leaf. He wanted to have a family. He wanted to change his lifestyle. He wanted to denounce the gang lifestyle. And he wasn't trying to do it on no negative terms, from my understanding. He wasn't belittling the gang. He wasn't slandering it. It just wasn't for him anymore. You know what I'm saying? He was still a man, though. If you came at him, he'd get into it with you. But he was trying to turn over a new leaf. And there was a lot of other individuals that did not really feel this, or were pushing more of an issue towards him. It got to the point to where he'd have arguments with certain Norteños right there in front of his house, or to where they would drive by and they'd yell out slurs like dropout killer and 187 and so forth. But he didn't let it faze him, man. I think to him, maybe he thought maybe his past relationships would have probably salvaged any type of damage, because he wanted to be a normal citizen, which he should have been able to be entitled to that. So it all turned for the worse. So early 2012, he was walking with his girlfriend, Sarah. They were leaving his mom's house where they stayed. I forgot where they were going, but they were walking up the street. A blue car drives up with some big rims. Now, as the blue car pulls up, the individual rolls down the window. His name is Raul Torres, and he proceeds to shoot Michael Escalera. He gets knocked down. He gets shot a few times. His old lady helps him up. They walk to the corner where he can't stand no more. She runs in to go get some help from some family members. In the process of this happening, when they come back out, he was laid on the floor. They had to call 911. He was pronounced dead very shortly after. And immediately there was two individuals that were arrested in this. This is going to be interesting. A 31-year-old man, Raul Torres, and a 17-year-old kid, Thomas Blanco Garcia. Now tell me what doesn't look right in this scenario. A 31-year-old man running around with a 17-year-old kid, having him take out an individual that, from my understanding, was just an individual that wanted to walk away from the gang lifestyle out there in the streets. I mean, that right there would not sit well with me. If this came up on my in front of me, a report, I would have serious issues on this. A 31-year-old influencing a 17-year-old. Now I get it when they're 17 to 20, 21 maybe. That's a close little time frame. But a 31-year-old man running around with a kid committing murder. The 17-year-old got 50 years for, I think, first-degree murder. He took it to trial. And then the 31-year-old man at the time got a 25-year sentence to life for second-degree murder. So now you have three individuals, right? Two of them that you really have to think about it, that are affected by this even the worst. A 17-year-old kid that never got a chance at life, never got the chance to reach adulthood and see what he could do for himself. And they had a 25-year-old man who, from my understanding, didn't have no affiliations with the NF, wasn't out there functioning with the regiment. Now, this is from my understanding. Now, could there be more to this case than what meets the eyes? Yes. But there's one interesting case factor I was able to learn through reading the transcripts as well, was that the Raul Torres, a 31-year-old, previously dated Michael Escalera's sister. That almost sounds a little bit personal, right? Like there was a conflict or there was an issue. Because I guarantee you, if he was still with that sister, he would have never had the action took against him. And see, this is where I have an issue, man. Nowadays, you got people out there in the streets that are calling people that decide at 14 years old in high school, they're saying, I don't want to be a gang member no more. They're calling them dropouts. That term was never supposed to be used for anybody like that. You don't consider dropping out from a street gang an issue. You know what I'm saying? If from my understanding, every time we've had hoods and street gangs and so forth, man, if you decide at any point in your life that you want to change your life, your hood's supposed to embrace you and accept that. They're supposed to encourage that. As long as you didn't commit no crimes against the people or conduct any type of cowardice acts or flip-flop. And everybody knows what I mean by flip-flop. You're a homeboy when we're hella deep and you need us in the county jail or out there in the streets. But, you change your ways when the numbers are low and nobody's out there. A lot of people do that. But in any event, man, this is a story right here, though. I've never heard, for all my years when I was out there active, I don't know if things have changed, but anytime a homeboy decided to change his ways and decided to work, get a job, go in the union, we always encouraged it with homeboys from the hood. We always accepted whatever one wanted to do what was best for himself. And this also included the O. A lot of states would work hand in hand as far as they would have relationships with individuals who were totally legit, but were resourceful as far as like getting homeboys jobs and plugging them in with this and that, where it was nothing illegal. So you have those options. You're supposed to always have those options. Even if you're an insoldado, you're supposed to have the option if you come home, if you want to function or not. And it's got to the extreme to where if you say, oh, you know what, I don't want to kick with the homies no more, now you're getting smoked. Man, that's some cowardice stuff, man. I mean, the game's done changed, and in looking at this story, this gives every kid more of an incentive not to even join a gang because it could become personal, and they feel like they can control your life, what you do. The only person who should ever control your life is you. And if that means you want to align with the Norteño politics, NF politics, and so forth, hey, that's on you. I can't dissuade nothing. I'm not going to speak bad on none of that. But you should also have the right, if you want to say, you know what, I want to go in the union. You know what, I want to go in the military. You know what, I just don't want to gangbang no more. I want to grow up. You should have that opportunity. And in this case, it looks like not only was he not afforded that opportunity, a 17-year-old kid caught a case in the process with a 31-year-old grown man. I don't think that's ever going to be cleared or acceptable. I mean, unless the game doesn't change, nah. You know what I mean? If I was out there 31 years old committing crimes with 17-year-old kids, I'd expect to get deemed no good. You know what I mean? That's a straight shady character. I mean, that's a degenerate right there. That's a renegade that goes against everything that you're supposed to be taught about uplifting the people and pushing a positive message and so forth, man. And I read this case, I was really affected by it, man. Because the whole one that was basically behind it the most was the 31-year-old. If you're 31 years old and you're gangbanging, you're trying to take out people from your own hood because they don't want to gangbang no more, that's some petty shit right there, man. And you're involving minors. I don't care what you say. A 17-year-old is still a minor, as a 31-year-old man. Shame on you, man. No respect in the game right there, And anyways, man, this is just something for people to think about, man, especially when you're talking to your kids that may be venturing down that path, because it's not like how it was when maybe some of us were growing up in the 80s, 90s, and even 2000s. There was a little bit less control by any other particular groups. You could walk away from your street gang if you wanted to, as long as you did it on good terms. Like, hey, I'll rock with you, homies, but man, I got to do me. I got to provide for my family. I want to change. I don't want to be a part of this. And see, that should be more respectful than forcing someone to be involved and then end up telling them because they never wanted to be involved in the first place. So if someone wants to walk away on good terms and say, you know what, hey, let them then. And the same thing goes for certain homeboys that get to the beatdown, they decide to lock it up, like they don't want to do the politics, and they go to an SNY yard. As long as they don't start pushing any of these SNY things, then hey, why can't they be accepted too out there in the streets? You should be able to make that choice. Things have changed to where these bigger groups have too much control over these smaller factions, and you don't have a choice in it. You're not taught at a young age, becoming a homeboy, that this is what's going to happen when you get to the Pinta. Some places may do like Salinas, right? And maybe San Jose in Tulare County, but a lot of areas they don't. You're raised into something to be something, and you don't know what the consequences are going to be of those actions. And I think it's unfair for anybody not to make these type of choices and utilize our youth. It's crazy, man. This was a crazy story, man. You hear it all the time, though. You know, situation in Dakota, the young kids got killed. You know, out there in San Jose, a 13-year-old kid recently got killed as well. These altercations happen. You know, I think it was either Vacaville or Vallejo where the young Norteno, he tried to claim self-defense because he was getting rushed by two grown men. You know, just because you're a gang member or past gang member does not mean that you deserve those type of consequences, man. You know, people need to think that when an individual makes these choices, they're making choices for themselves, not for you. You know, because therefore you're giving other people control over your life. And that's where the problem is in that lifestyle nowadays. Before, you could be from your hood, you didn't have to kick in unless you were doing something big, and you could still make your own choices. You knew what time it was when you got locked up. Submit all paperwork, put your 5x5, NA clearance process, and so forth. And it's time to secure. Let's get busy. It was a simple program. They've altered it and they've changed it to now terms like dropout is just being loosely used. The term dropout was only for organizations. It was developed by CDC when they were using the validation purposes to get out the validation purposes to debrief. When you debriefed, you dropped out. So therefore, all these other groups, Sureños, they're not an organization. Norteños, they're not an organization. NF, they're an organization. MA, they're an organization. So you have to be a part of something to drop out. But when you hear something about like a 12-year-old kid, a 14-year-old kid, oh, he's a dropout. Man, come on, that shit sounds fucking despicable to me. You know what I mean? It's not the way things were always supposed to be. I get it. Sometimes you got to evolve with the time, man. But this is the kind of stuff that is not affording our future. And our future doesn't have to be within the behind the walls. The future should be out there in the streets, doing something positive, doing something productive. Because once you get behind the walls, what are you teaching them behind the walls? You're teaching them about the causes, about bettering themselves, and taking that discipline and everything and applying it out in the streets. Why can't we put that same energy into these young kids out there? If you really believe in the cause, why can't we push that movement? Why do we have to push it behind the walls to like some 30, 40-year-old man that we already know once they get back out of the streets, they're going to be twisting that pipe or they're going to be fucking poking that needle? Let's touch these kids at that age now, if you care about the cause. You know? Anyways, man, interesting story. A very, very direct message. You know me, because I'm going to be very direct. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to keep it raw and real. You know, I think it's better to do that now at a young age, so therefore people can make a choice whether it's in them or not. Because too often than not, people just slide on by. They float. They skate. You know, they're in shadows. They get away with stuff. And then when shit hits the fan and reality kicks in, they're not going to know what they're really about, man. And maybe they're not built for this life. Anyways, hope you guys got something out of this spill, man. Hope you enjoyed it, man. For those out there, man, if you want to change your life, man, do it today. You always have tomorrow. Stay positive, stay blessed, keep it pushing. With that said, your boy Flaco, I'm gone.